Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to put the wing completely together, and this is what it's going to look like when we're done with it. It's a lot of work, but yeah, we'll get there. I do have a couple of announcements to make. One is I'm not going to have this kit ready quite so quickly now. It's been delayed a little because I've decided to go ahead and put together a complete building manual, so it makes it easier than just trying to follow me along in a video. It'll be all written down, and you can go ahead and follow the manual. And then if you have issues, then you can look at the video and see how I did it. I think that'll be a lot easier. Most of my plans that I have came with manuals, but I have a couple that didn't. So, and this happens to be one of them. Once I get that manual done, then I will go ahead and release the kit for sale. And the kit's probably going to be about $425, and it'll be free shipping within the U.S. So that should make it sort of reasonable. But this is what the wing's going to look like when it's done, though. Also, flip it over here for you, and that's what it'll look like on the bottom when we're done with it as well. One other thing, I do have another announcement to make. The next scratch build that I'm going to do. So I will announce that a little bit later in this video, so stay tuned for that. Plus, you will be able to win a free short kit of that plane. Stay tuned for that, and I will explain how to go about signing up for that as well. Let's get to it. All right, we're going to start with the wing section now, and we're going to do this in 3 parts. We'll do the center section first, and then we'll do the 2 outer panels. So you need parts C1 through C6. So grab those, and first lay them out and make sure that they all line up right for you. And then pull them back off, and then we're going to use 30-minute epoxy to glue these things up. All right, so we're going to do C5 and C6 on the bottom. So they should go like this. You get some weights here. All right, so your next ones will be C3 and C4. And basically what you want these to do is you want the joints to overlap so that you don't have any weak spots. So if you see that your joints are lining up evenly, then that's wrong. So basically all your odd number ones are going to be on one side, and all your even number ones will be on the other side. So that should make it easier for you. Make sure your parts stay lined up, because the problem is epoxy wants everything to move. I don't know why, but everything's got to slide. And we'll go ahead and do the other one now. But this part here is going to take the most stress in the plane. So you're going to want to make sure it's definitely built strong enough to withstand all the stress that you're going to throw at it. Okay, I think it's set up enough to where we can go ahead and add the other 2 pieces. So we're just going to put some more 30-minute epoxy on these. So during the process while this is setting up, be sure to watch your pieces, as they tend to want to move. Mine did that, and then I had to put them back together again. Okay, center section bracing is done. The centerpiece. There's going to be a couple other centerpieces, but that's the main spar. So we'll let that set up, and then we'll get back to the rest of it. All right, now that we got the completed center section, you should have something that looks like this. It's going to be a big wing. So that's your center spar. So now we're going to start building some of the ribs. And you're going to need parts 1, 1C, and 1D. And you should have 2 sets of those. So locate those parts. And then it goes 1C, 1, and 1D. And same thing on the 2s, 2C, 2, 2, 2D. So we're going to use either 5 or 6 minute epoxy, whatever you have, and we're going to glue those together. All right. Okay, so you don't have a lot of working time with this stuff. So you're just going to do 1D here, and then we'll put number 1 right on top of that, and then we'll put some epoxy on top of that one. Then we'll put 1C on top of that one. So make sure these are all lined up. You want to use the top part of it for a reference. That's where they're going to line up to. And I'll take a clamp and clamp those together. Alright, so hopefully those don't move at all. Just kind of make sure that they all went together good. Alright, so that takes care of one, so go ahead and do the other 3 the same way. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next part. You're going to need part 6 and 6A. There's 2 of each of them. And just make sure when you glue these pieces right here together that you have a left and a right. So when you stand them up, they should be mirror opposites. Because even after 47 years of building these things, I screwed one up. So I had to take it apart, and it's really tough to get stuff apart once the epoxy sets. But so I've got to fix that one. So basically when you look at these, they should be mirror opposites. So we'll glue those up now. Okay, so once you get the other things done, up being epoxied, just take some isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel, clean up any excess that you might have, and then we'll move on to the center leading edge. And you're going to need parts L1 through L4. And so these, we can just use CA glue, because this is not where the support's happening. That would be on the center spar. So pour a little bit, whoa. Make sure it's laid out like that, because then our next pieces will actually, you're going to glue these on top, and these are going to overlap that joint, so we don't have a weak spot. So you're going to want to, and then, but you don't need to put any glue on this one around that, so it'd probably be better just to put the glue on here, is what I'm going to do. Because we're going to cut this little section out later, so we have complete access through that hole. Alright, let's do that now. Alright, so when you do this, you're going to take the L3, L4, and you'll glue those together right there. And you want to make sure that joint is staggered. And then you're going to cut out this section right here. And you should end up with something that looks like this. And this is your leading edge. And we also need to mark in where the ribs go. So we'll do that now. Alright, so our next step's going to be, we need to draw in where our ribs are going to go. So these lines that are right here on the plan, use those as your guide, and we'll draw those in. We'll do that now. Alright, so once you get the one side done, then flip it over and do the other side. So you should have lines on both sides of your center spar. Alright, so now you're going to need your D1s. And these are going to be your front spar doublers. And they're going to go in like so. And then you have your aft spar doublers, which will go on the back side of that. So, and you want to epoxy these in, and you can use whichever epoxy you want. Doesn't matter. So let's get that done now. All right. So now you should have something that looks like this with your doublers. So now we're going to put in the first ribs. So you're going to need 1C and 2C. And then we're just going to mount these right in here. And make sure your this portion lines up with that hole right there. That's your landing gear rails. All right, let's do that now. And use 6-minute or 5-minute epoxy, whatever you have. Okay, so now you should have something that looks like this. You've got your landing gear spots. So now on to the next step. All right, so now you're going to need your 3, 4, and 5, and you're going to glue them in respective locations. 3, 4, 5, and you're going to glue them right to the center spar, right like that. So you'll have 3, 4, and 5 on both sides, and then in the middle we'll put our 6s when we get to that. All right, so let's do that now. And you can use CA glue to glue those on. You don't need epoxy. All right. Also, note that this is the top of your spar, and so you want all your parts labeled top, where it's labeled top, to be at the top of the spar. All right. All right. So now you're going to need to grab your 6 and 6A assemblies, and then you're going to need parts 6B, and you want to test fit these before you glue them. Make sure they're good. They'll just go in like so. These are your wing dowel plates. You want to make sure they fit good. So once you're satisfied with that, then go ahead and epoxy those with 6-minute epoxy. All right. And then after you glue those together, then you can glue these to your center spar with 6-minute epoxy also. All right. So now you should have something that looks like this. So let that all set up, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right. So once you have this done, it should look something like this. And what I did is I went ahead, once this section dried, I went ahead and added some more epoxy on it just because that's going to take a lot of stress, and I want to make sure that's going to hold up good. So then you'll flip it like that, and you're going to need parts 3B through 6B, and you're going to go ahead and glue them into their respective locations. So 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's get that done now. And when you glue these in, you're going to want to use CA glue, and you're going to want to make them to where they should be pretty even with the top and bottom. But it should, if there's any question, always aim for the top, be even with that. All right, so once you got that done, then you're going to want to put in 1A and 2A on both ends, and you need to epoxy those in. So, and you can use whichever epoxy you want to use. Doesn't have to be 5 or 6 minute. It can be 30 minute if you want. It doesn't matter. All right, so now you should have something that looks quite like this, with all your ribs in place. And just make sure all your glue joints are good. And then we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so now what you want to do is find some of your 1/2 inch by 7/8 inch balsa sticks, whatever you have left over, and cut 2 blocks. And one's going to go under 1A at both ends. And then you're going to pin that block to the board. And then take some weights and weight down the center of the spar. And this will help keep the spar from twisting while we're finishing up the rest of the stuff on it. All right, so now you're going to need T1 and T2, and you'll glue these right up at this joint right here, and then you'll lay another one on top, and make sure your joints don't line up. They need to be staggered. So, and then you'll glue those all together to each other. Okay, so once you get those pieces glued together, then you're going to glue them to the aft ends of your ribs. Okay? All right, so once you get that done, you should have something that looks like this. So now we can go ahead and put on the front, the forward leading edge. So we'll do that now. All right, now you're going to need L5, and then you should have 2 of those. And this is your leading edge tripler. Now we're going to push these up from the bottom, and they're going to fit between rib 5 and rib 2. And they'll cover this little hole right here. This little hole there. Yeah. So you're going to push these up from the bottom. And note the this portion here is going to be over here. And the wide portion is going to be up next to rib 5. So you're going to slide that up in there from the bottom. And then once you get that in place, then now it's all good. Go ahead and glue it. So if you're not sure which way to put this, the large end right here will go up against your rib 5. And the small end goes down at rib 2. And then that curve just follows the curve of the leading edge. All right? All right, so now we're going to drill the holes for our wing dowel plate. And so what you want to do is take a T-pin and run it through the hole and out the front, making sure to keep this perpendicular to the frame. Push it through. Then you'll pull it out and start with a 3/16 drill bit. Drill the first hole, and then come back with a 5/16 drill bit and then finish it. All right. So once you get that done, it should look something like that. All right, so now you're going to need a 1/4 by 3/8 by 18 basswood. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut this into 4 pieces that are 3 inches long. And they're going to go into the rail slots, or your servo hatch rails right there. Okay, so once you got those cut, then go ahead and glue those into place with whichever epoxy that you prefer to use. Okay, so once you get your hatch rails glued in, it should look something similar like that. And now we're going to move on to the next thing, which is you're going to need a 3/8 by 1/2 by 30-inch basswood stick, and you're going to cut 4 4.5-inch long pieces, and those will be your retract gear rails. They go in here. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, right there. It goes right in there. So we'll cut those and then we'll glue them in. And we're going to use 30-minute epoxy to glue those rails in, by the way. All right, so you should have that done. So you should have your rails in. Should look something like this. It's going to be a pretty good sized wing. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. So at this point, go ahead and double check all your glue joints just to make sure everything is glued down good. Because you don't, once we cover this with balsa, you don't want any problems underneath. All right? All right, so now you're going to need to grab your wing panel portion of the plan and go ahead and lay it out and cover it with some wax paper or plan protector. And then grab your 3/8 by 1/2 by 30 stick, basswood stick. That's going to be your top spar, because if you notice on the plan, it says we're going to do the left wing first. The left wing panel is built upside down over this section. Set your spar down here on the plan. Then we'll get the ribs out and get them set up to be glued in. All right, so now you're going to need T3 through T9, which will be all your wing ribs. And when you set these in, make sure that the tabs are right adjacent to the board. That's going to keep your wing ribs in the right position. Once you're satisfied with the way those fit, then go ahead and glue them in place with some CA glue. Alright, so once you get your ribs glued in, now you're going to need another 3/8 by 1/2 inch by 30 inch basswood stick, and you're going to cut that the same length as the bottom one. This one's going to be a little bit different though, because you're going to need to, at rib T6, you're going to need to cut a V-notch on the underside of this so that this stick can then bend down into T7. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, once you get that cut, that V-notch cut, go ahead and set it in there, but do not glue it yet. So that's going to stay loose for the time being. And now we're going to take care of the leading edge and the trailing edge. All right, so you're going to need a 30-inch piece of balsa leading edge, which I know you can get these from Balsa USA. They have them. And then you're going to need a piece of 1/2 inch by 1 inch by 30 inch piece. And that's your trailing edge. So, you want to notch these. Just look at the plan right there, and that's where you notch it. The other notch is right up there for the leading edge. All right, so now we're going to glue on the trailing edge. And what you need to do is, well, I made a mark right there, because this has got to be glued to the top edge, which is upside down. So the top edge of this right here has got to be where that gets glued to. And then you'll center it on the rest of them, which should be pretty close to about, it's pretty close to about the same size as most of the ribs. But make sure this is glued near that point. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this now. And just remember, this is going to be glued to the top edge, which the top edge is on the bottom at this point. Till we flip it around, then it'll be the top. But yeah, just make sure you're in the right locations with all that stuff. And so now you're going to glue also your bottom spar, so that glue that all in. Especially make sure you glue that spot where it bends. And then your leading edge, when you glue that on, glue it to all the ribs except for T7, because it's going to be slightly off center down there. Okay? All right, so once you got those glued in, it should look something like I have here. So next you're going to want to take a straight edge and lay it down here, and then draw a line from this rib to this rib. And then you're going to want to sand this down. Use a razor plane and sanding bar to angle this down to the bottom of that rib. And you'll do the same thing on the front as well, and you can go ahead and glue that spot at on your T7 when you're satisfied with where it's going to sit at. So then once you do that, then we'll move on from there. All right, so now you're going to need to cut a 1/4 by 3/8 by 18 basswood sticks. You're going to need to cut those and you're going to have to cut them 4.5 inches long for your aileron hatch rails. And then you're going to need to cut 4 from a 1/2 by 1/2 by 36 balsa stick. You're going to need to cut some hinge blocks, and we'll do that now. And you're going to glue your hatch rails in with 6-minute epoxy. All right, so once you get your hatch rails glued in, then you'll need to glue your hinge blocks in, and you'll glue them centered on the trailing edge. So we'll get that done now. All right, so once you got all your blocks glued in, then grab you some notebook paper. We're going to make some aileron lead tubes. So you just roll it up and long ways. Take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, roll it up so it'll sit in this slot right here, and because your aileron servo leads are going to come through that little hole right there. Okay, so once you got that done, then you can pull your wing panel off the building board. All right, so go ahead and grab your wing plan for the one that's labeled left wing panel. And remember, we're building this upside down, so we're building the right side, the right wing panel on this, because we built the left wing panel on the right side, upside down. So you're going to need 2 3/8 by 1/2 inch by 30 inch basswood sticks, and then you'll cut them to length like you did the last time, and so that'll be your spars. So we'll go ahead and get that pinned down to the board like we did the last time. All right, so now you're going to need your ribs. So you're going to have T3 through T9, and you'll glue them to the spar just like you did the last time. All right, and also make sure that your wing tabs back here, your jig tabs, are flush with the board as you glue them down, so everything's where it needs to be. All right, so once you get your ribs glued in, now you're going to need a 30-inch shaped balsa leading edge and 1/2 inch by 1 inch by 30 inch balsa stick, and you're going to cut notches in like I've done here, like we did on the last wing. And you're also going to need to take your other 3/8 by 1/2 by 30 basswood stick and cut a V notch like you did the last time at rib 6, so it will bend down to rib 7. And once you do that, you can glue that in also. All right, so now once you get your leading edge and your trailing edge glued on, go ahead and do like you did the last time and sand the angle down between T6 and T7. All right, so once you got that done, got your leading edge all sanded down into the from 5 to 6, then what you're going to need to do is grab your basswood stick that you had for the last one, at 1/4 inch by 3/8 by 18 inch is what it was, and you'll cut your 2 aileron servo hatch rails. And then once you get that done, then grab your 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 36 inch balsa stick and cut your 5 hinge blocks and place them in the spots according to the plan. All right. So once you get those sticks cut, you're going to need the 6-minute epoxy to glue your hatch rails in, and you can just use regular CA glue to glue your hinge blocks on. All right. So now you should have one more completed wing panel, and all right, so we're going to put this wing together today. And so what the first thing you want to do is, you can see that right on the end there, draw your lines between the spar, and then take out that wood that's right there. I'll show you what it looks like. So it's going to wind up looking like that when you're done. So once you get that out, then you're going to want to sand that center section right there so it fits in that slot. And you want to make sure that you have 2 dihedral deals, and it says top on one spot and tip on the other. So you're going to want to make sure the top is at the top part of your spar and the tip is facing out towards the tip. And then make sure that this thing will slide in all the way, and then set your dihedral pieces in there and make sure that this wing is in alignment. You may have to trim your spars a little bit if it doesn't go all the way. So you need the ribs to be right up against these dihedral pieces. So go ahead and get that done. Oh, and by the way, you can also take off all your wing jib tabs except for your T7s. Those need to remain on for the next step. So now you're going to need a 7/8 by 1 1/4 by 9 1/2 inch balsa block, and you're going to want to set that just under the center spar right over here to hold the wing up, and then you'll slide your panels on. You're going to use these dihedral spacers to set the dihedral of your wing, and you want to put weights down, and so you want to make sure that there's weights on the end over here on T7, and then you're going to make sure this thing is all in alignment and you see no twist in the wing. So once you get one side set, then do the other side. So I'll pull a camera off a tripod here and I'll show you what I've got. So once you get that done and you're happy with it, then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so I got the camera off the tripod, and now you can kind of see what this wing is really looking like. Just get it all put together and make sure everything's on alignment. You can see it all the way down there. I think I got it pretty well in alignment. I'm going to put T-pins where your leading edge and trailing edge line up so that you can hold those together where they're supposed to be, and then once you get that set, then we'll move on. So also when you're setting this wing up, you're going to put that block, that balsa block I mentioned, it's going to sit right here under your center spar, and that's going to hold your wing up. And you're also going to want to make sure you put weights down on your T7 to make sure that that wing panel stays flat on the building board. So you don't want that to move at all. Where your line's up in the center, you may have to do a little bit of work with the hole. If it doesn't slide on good, just make sure it slides on good, and then you've got some little bit of wiggle room to move that that wing panel to the right position. Yeah, I think that covers it until we get ready to do the next thing. All right, so once you have your wing all in alignment where it needs to be, go ahead and use 30-minute epoxy to go ahead and glue this thing up. All right, and make sure that nothing changes from where it sets, but you might have to pull it apart to get some epoxy in there, but just try to make sure it goes all back where it needs to be, and then use pins at your joints right here, and maybe a couple clamps to hold this thing together so it doesn't move on you. So, all right. I think the next time, if I had to do this all over again, I would just go ahead and make an extra set of those dihedral setters, but I would just glue them in there with epoxy. That way your wing sets properly. And in fact, I think I may go ahead and include an extra set of them in. So if you decide that you want to do that, it would they're there for you. So because I can't see that it would make that much difference adding that in. It would just make that joint stronger, and then it's not going to really add an extra weight to it because just small little bits of plywood, 1/8" light plywood, so it's not going to really add much weight. So it's not going to throw the thing all out of characteristic, but it certainly make it your dihedral set stay, because it's pretty, with this wing all up in the air like it is, it's kind of difficult to work with and get everything to set properly, and that would definitely help. Just go ahead and glue those right on in to the plane. We'll move on to the next thing then. All right, so now what we're going to need to do is grab a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 36-inch balsa stick, and you're going to need to cut 8 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch long, and you're going to want to put them into the spots back here on the trailing edge. Those will be your hinge blocks, and after you put them on there, just go ahead and make a mark so you know where the hinge blocks are. So once you put the skin on, you won't have any trouble finding them. And then once you're done with that, then go ahead and start sanding your wing pieces here. Make sure everything's flush. There's no high spots because you don't want those areas to poke through on the skin. And try not to sand your ribs. If you think you might have trouble, just go ahead and put a little masking tape over it so you don't end up sanding them by accident. All right. Oh yeah, and these hinge blocks here are going to be flush with the bottom of this trailing edge. So I've got the wing upside down right now, so the hinge block is going to go like that, and it's going to be flush with that area right there. And when you put these hinge blocks in back here, just follow the spots where they go on the plan. Okay, so now we're going to do the outer wing panels, the skins for them. And you're going to need 4 3/32 by 3 by 30-inch balsa sheets for each panel cover. So that means you're going to need 16 of them, because you're going to need to make 4 covers, one top, one bottom on each side. So you go ahead and take those and edge glue them together to make your panels. All right, so now you're going to need to take 2 more 3/32 by 3 by 30-inch pieces and cut them in half, and then you'll end up with 4 pieces like this. All right, so now you're going to take 2 3/32 by 3-inch by 30-inch pieces of balsa sheets, and you're going to cut them long ways in half. So then you'll end up with a 1.5 inch by 30 inches, and then you're going to edge glue it, each one to the 4 pieces that you've already glued together. All right, so you'll then have 5 pieces together, and one of them will only be like 1.5 inches, while all the other ones will be 3 inches. All right, so now you're going to need 5 3/32 by 3 by 30-inch balsa sheets, and what you're going to do is you're going to cut them all in half, and then you'll take 2 pieces and edge glue those together, and then you're going to take 2, and then you're going to cut them lengthwise, so then you end up with 4 pieces that are this size, and you'll take one of these and edge glue it to this piece here, so that you have a 3-inch, a 3-inch, and a 1.5 inch by 6 inches. All right, so the next step is to grab 3 more 3/32 by 3 by 30-inch balsa sheets, and you're going to take one of those sheets and you're going to cut 2 pieces that are 14 inches long. So that's these. And then you're going to take one more sheet and you're going to cut it into 4 12-inch pieces. Then you're going to take one more sheet and cut it into 4 7-inch pieces. All right, so what you're going to need to do now is take those pieces you cut. You're going to need a 14-inch, 2 12s, and 2 7s. So you'll put the 14 in the middle, and then you're going to measure in 1 inch on each side, and then you'll put the 12 there on both sides of the 14, and the 7 you'll measure 2.5 inches in, draw a line, and you'll do that on both sides of that, and edge glue all those together now. All right, so next what you're going to do is take and put a mark halfway between on your 14-inch piece, and then on your 7-inch do another one that's halfway in between, and then you're going to draw a line around. So you're going to make a nice square piece of wood out of all these sheets right here, okay? All right, so once you're done cutting those, you should have 2 panels that look like this. So go ahead and grab your wing now and put it back on your building board, and we'll start sheeting this thing up. All right, so what you're going to need to do now is grab one of your wing skins on for your outer panel, and you're going to mark on this panel from starting at T6, and you're going to want to let this thing hang over about 3/16 of an inch all the way around. So you're going to want to draw a line where your rib is, and then also keep it even with the leading edge, and then draw a second line back here, and that's going to be at rib 1C. And once you get those lines drawn, then you can go ahead and cut it. Don't worry about the back corner over there. It will be open for a bit, and we'll take some balsa and fill that in later, all right? All right, so once you get this section cut, then you're going to use thick CA to glue it down to the ribs. So you're going to line it up with the front edge here, and then just slowly work your way back, all right? Okay, so once you get your leading edge glued down, go ahead and work your way back. Start with going to the middle, and then go the rest of the way after that sets. And I always use a little bit of water with alcohol mixed in, rubbing alcohol that is, and because it seems to work pretty good, and the alcohol will dissipate pretty quick. You know, you can use whatever method you're used to, but that's one I find works pretty good. All right, so once you get that piece glued on, then you're going to take the smaller piece that you cut off, and you're going to glue that to the wingtip down here. And what you might want to do is add a little bit of balsa so that you have an extra area to glue to. So give you some support. All right. All right. So once you get the one side done, go ahead and flip your wing around and do the same thing on the other side. All right. All right. So now that you got those the sheeting on the bottom side with those two panels, now what you need to do is take and rough cut out your hatch opening. So we'll just cut it like on the inside of these rails here for now, and then we'll come back and size it up properly later on. Okay. All right. So once you get your hatch openings cut out, go ahead and grab your wing jigs, which is going to be part of your kit, and also you need a balsa block that's 1 1/4 by 1 3/4 by 3 1/4 inches, and you're going to take that block and set it right there to hold up your trailing edge. And then make sure when you set your wing down, you set it down on these jigs, and it's got to be perfectly on there. And you can actually just, if you're doing it on a wooden building board, you can tack glue the wing jigs to that so that it doesn't move on you, because you want this thing to sit on that perfectly while you put the top skin on, because then that creates the needed washout in the wing. All right. So we'll go ahead and do this side, and then we'll flip it around and do the other side. All right. All right. So when you get ready to put this wing skin on, you're going to go from rib 1 right there all the way to rib T7, and you're going to glue this down at the leading edge first, and then once it's glued there, then you'll glue it all the way back to the center spar, and then from there you'll lift this up very carefully and then glue it all the way back to the rest of the area. Okay, we'll do that now. All right, so now you should have both your wing panels, top and bottom, skinned. Should have it sanded flush to the leading edge, trailing edge, and to your T7, and your aileron hatch cut open. And now you should be ready to do the center part of the wing. So we'll do that next. All right. All right. Now what you're going to need to do is grab one of your panels that's 6 inches by 7.5 inches, and you want the grain running long ways, the same, just like your top skin here. And then you're going to set this in here, and you're going to wet it down first to get the shape in. And then when you're done, when you've got that, then you can go ahead and glue it to the forward part of your center spar, across your ribs, and in the front here. But don't worry about trimming it once you're done. We'll do that later. All right, so when you put this down, you're going to need to, after you got it down on here, you want to cut this back to the front part of your center spar, and then glue that down there, and then cut this edge right here along about halfway on your rib 3, and then you'll glue it down to that rib, okay? And then once you're done with that, then grab another panel, and we're going to glue that one in across these ribs right here. All right, so once you get this side done, then go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. All right, so now your wing should look something like this. And what you want to do is grab your panels that you made right here, and this is going to go on the back side. So go ahead and glue those into place, one on each side. All right, so now your wing should look like this. So the last part we got to do is you're going to need 3 3-inch by 30-inch by 3/32 balsa sheets to go ahead and just sheet this section over right here. So we'll get that done, and then we can flip it over and work on the other side. All right, so that completes the top of the wing. Okay, and so go back, and when you get ready to flip this over, check and make sure all your wood in the center here is touching your ribs. That way, make sure everything's glued down good. So let's go ahead and flip it over and do the bottom of it. All right, so once you flip your wing over, go ahead and run your aileron extension cables through. And why I didn't run them through before sheeting the bottom of the wing, I have no idea. I normally would do that, and for some reason, I didn't do it and regretted it completely. I did also, a couple days ago, I got the retracts for this plane. So they're 90-degree rotating retracts. They look pretty good. So I'm waiting on a couple more things for those. And then I think we'll try them out and see how they look. All right, so as promised, I've got information for the next aircraft build after this one. It's going to be a C-130, 1/9 scale, I believe it is. And it's a Palmer plan. So it's got 11-foot wingspan, 8-foot long fuselage. So it's going to be a pretty good size airplane. And I'm also going to do a giveaway of one of those kits. So at some point before the end of this current build, I will have information for you to go to a website and sign up to win this thing. So by the time we get ready to start that build, I'll probably have drawn a name and send the kit to somebody, and then whoever wins the kit can then follow along with the build. So good luck with winning. And now we'll just go ahead and we'll finish the bottom of this wing. All right. All right. So the first thing you want to do is add a scrap piece of 1/8 inch balsa right inside these hatch rails. That gives you a little extra gluing room to do. And it might be easier this way, the way I'm going to do it. Go ahead and do both sides at the same time, and that'll save you a little bit of time with skin shapes. So, and the first one we're going to do is going to be a piece of 3/32 by 3 by 24 inch balsa sheet, and we're going to run it from R1A all the way down to 5A. Now, once you get it over these hatch rails, do not glue the skin to those hatch rails or the doubler. So, but start up here and glue it from the aft part of the center spar, and just kind of go along a little bit of time and glue it down. We'll do that on both sides now. All right, so for bending this balsa wood, I found what worked good for me on this. You tack it up here first with glue, then getting it really wet, and I use a mixture of water and rubbing alcohol. That always seems to work really good for me. And so I just sprayed it down and got it good and wet, and then just slowly pushed on it. And then once I got it down to that point, then I put some my 3-2-1 blocks on it, and I'm just letting it sit there, and then it should conform to that shape here before too long. So because once it starts to dry, it'll dry right in that shape right there. All right, so now you should have something that looks like this. So next we're going to go ahead and take another piece of balsa and go there, and you can use your flap hatch opening or your hatch cover to go ahead and measure out this area right here so that you get it all cut correctly. And so you'll do one more here, and then you'll do another one back here, and do that on both sides. All right. All right, so once you get that done, it should look something like this. Good portion of the bottom of your wing, and now we'll work on the area up here. And if you ran your aileron servo cables, extension cables out, like I suggested, make sure that those make it all the way to the center. You may have to add another section onto it for for now until you get the servo actually in there. It'll make it much easier to get that wire when you need it. All right, so now you're going to need your ribs 3C, and these will go right up against your center spar and be even with the top edge back here, but it's not going to be even down here. It's going to, because it's going to curve down. So just make sure it's even in the back. And so you glue that in there and do the same thing on the other side. Just make sure they're on the side that's facing your landing gear slot, okay? All right, so when you put these next pieces down, you're going to need 3/32 by 3 by 24, and you're going to cut a couple pieces here. One to go right here, and then a second one to go right after this, or forward, however you want to look at it. But when you do this one up here, you're going to glue the sheet down to 3C part where it curves down, and you're going to cut it around this little bump, and then the leftover balsa in the front will be used to finish off this leading edge right here. All right, so once you get the sheeting all on, you should have something that looks like this on both sides like that. So once you got that done, we'll go ahead and do the wingtips. Let's go along, sand your leading edge and your trailing edge all flush, and sand your number 7 ribs, sand all that flush. And then after that, we're going to do the wingtips, and you're going to need 2-inch by 3-inch by 12-inch balsa blocks, and you're going to cut them to that shape right there. So you can use the cross section of your plan to see, how to cut it. So you'll have to cut that down, and then we'll glue those on to the wingtips, and then start to sand them into shape. All right. So once you get those sand down, and they don't have to be exactly perfect, you just want to rough sand them, get them to where they're shaped. I basically shaped it to the contour of the wing, just to kind of get it in the ballpark area. But yeah, it doesn't have to be exact yet. You can just rough sand it, because we'll come back and do the final on it when the time comes. So now we're finally done with the wing. Go ahead and take your wing, set it aside, and clean off your building table, and let's get ready to do the fuselage now. All right.